Hi everybody, it's Russ from My Hammers 11. I hope you're safe and well. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification icon so you're notified of any time we put lots of content on. Every day we've got stuff coming on, but sometimes 2-3 times a day, and every story, every memory is brilliant. We've got fans and players from all over the world, including today's fan, all the way from the west coast of America. It's Derek Gribble. Hi Derek, how are you?
Russ, I'm great. Good to meet you finally, live.
Finally.
Yeah.
No, it's been we've had a had a technical process for the last sort of 10-15 minutes, but it doesn't matter. We're here and ready to talk about West Ham. So how's everything over there? Obviously in lockdown and stuff like that for you.
Well, health-wise, everything's great. My wife and I were good. We were retired here, live alone. Then my kids around the country, they're good. Grandkids are good, and friends. So brilliant. I don't actually know anybody that's got it or had it, except perhaps me, because I was sick in January, really sick with what I thought was the flu, and I might have had it. I don't know. So, but as far as the health goes, everything's good, and that's the most important thing, right?
Exactly, it's totally good. You know, jobs can come and go, but as long as you got your health, that's the main thing. No, I think I had it as well in December. Me and my wife, we were really ill for like really bad over Christmas period. And actually, all of us, you know, my mother-in-law, my daughter, I think we actually had it, but because obviously it didn't just come over on the boat, you know, like in January. It's been around for a while, but it doesn't matter. We're not talking about that today. We're talking about West Ham. So obviously,
we are healthy.
We are brilliant, exactly. And West Ham are in a healthier position than we were 2 games ago. You know, in the last week.
Very true.
So
I hope it just continues.
Just continues. 2 more wins. That's all we need. I reckon 2 more wins. Burnley tomorrow, so we'll see what happens, and then 1 more, and I think we'll be all right. We're very fortunate, I think, in the fact that no one else around us wants to win a game either. So we've been quite lucky.
Right. By the way, Russ, I've got to say, thank you for doing this. It's been a great series between you doing this and Rob Banks posting his videos on Facebook. Yeah. For me, over here, it's kept me going during the the lockdown or the isolation, or whatever. So my usual, I get up in the morning and I have my breakfast and I go for a walk and I read the paper. And then usually in the regular season, football comes on in the week around 10, 11 or 12 o'clock here. Well, there hasn't been any. So instead I just turn on your channel or Rob Banks's videos, and it's kept me in touch, so to speak. So thank you. It's a great job, and it's really snowballed, isn't it? I mean,
it's gone mental, Derek. It's gone absolutely mental.
You never thought you were going to have Harry on there, did you? Or Tony Grant, Tony Carr, or any of those ex-players?
Never. It was a flippant comment I made to my wife about 8 weeks ago, and it's just snowballed into what it is now. You know, people all over the world talking about West Ham, and you know, as I said, I think it's nice, as you said, people like yourselves and people who aren't, you know, especially nowadays with no football on, it's kept people going and stuff. I mean, football's back on now, but and it sort of exemplifies the West Ham community that we all talk about. You know, people suggest other people, and this person's given me this person's phone number, and it has snowballed, and it's really fun. And you know, from where we are to where we're now, we're almost at 100 guests we've done, and got 100th guest coming up soon, and you know, over 1,000 subscribers. It's absolutely mental to think about in that context.
It's great for me because I've seen, I know a few, you know, quite a few of the people you've had on the fans. I was over there. I mean, this year in March was my 70th birthday, so one of my birthday presents to myself, we came over on a cruise to Spain, and we were going to then come up to France and England. I was going to do all kinds of stuff in England, including taking a West Ham game. I usually do. But then COVID comes along, and so we had to pop off home. You know, we got into Barcelona on the day they closed down Spain and England. I flew back to London right away, managed to get a flight out in about 2 days' time. So this is going to be the first year I actually haven't been over to see West Ham play in person for years, you know, a long time. And of course, I wouldn't have met, you know, I probably would have met Jackie Hughes and Colin Milne and Michelle and the Killington Clan and all those guys when I was over there in the pub. But that's not going to happen this year. But I've seen them on the telly, so or
You've
on your
kept,
show.
yeah, you've kept them on the telly. They've all had their moment to shine. So it's been
And
nice.
I learned some new stuff about
Yeah,
them as
yeah, I
well,
know.
you know.
I love all the story, and that's why I love all the stories around people's interactions with the fans and the players and their memories, and that's what it's all about, really. It's all about the memories and stuff. So Derek, so for you, why West Ham? Why is West Ham your club? How did it start?
Well, I'll tell you exactly. I was born and I grew up in South London. Well, Surrey it was when I was, I'm an old guy, I'm one of your experienced fans.
Very
So
good.
we lived not far from Croydon, and my dad was a Palace fan. And so when I was 7 or 8 years old, he would start taking me over to Palace games on the back of his motorcycle. And so we watched. I was a Palace fan, and I was a real football fan, and so was he. I really owe him that. He's passed on now. When Palace were away, we went to local football. I could walk down to Carshalton Athletic. I could get a trolley bus down my street to Sutton to see Sutton United. Yeah. Walk down the station, go to Tooting and Mitcham and watch the Mitcham Junction. Watch Tooting and Mitcham. That's one of Mikel and Antonio's old clubs, by the way. And in those days, I watched Alex Stepney, who I don't know, it's all before your time, but he became Manchester United's goalkeeper. But anyway, we really did watch a lot of football. So in the late 1950s, Palace had this player. I'm guessing you know what I'm talking about, but he became the best player at Palace by far. He was my hero as a kid, and he was so good, he was chosen to play for the England national team, even though Palace at the time were in the lowest division of the league. That's the last time I think it's happened. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Do you know what? I don't.
Well, of course, West Ham signed him. You see, he came out in 1962. He was getting too good for Palace. He had to go to a big club, so West Ham signed him, and that was Johnny Byrne.
Yeah.
Budgie Byrne. And so my allegiance, I said, I've got to watch West Ham now. I was just in grammar school, and all my mates at school, they were all Chelsea or Fulham or Spurs fans. And so I wanted to be a first division club fan too. So I chose West Ham. Didn't have any meaningful difference because I couldn't afford to go. I didn't have any money, as a 12-year-old, 11-year-old. So I still went to the Palace with my dad because he was paying for that. But so West Ham signs Johnny Byrne, and I decided to support them. And then that part of that transfer deal was West Ham agreed to play an exhibition match against the Palace, a friendly. I can't remember if it was actually in the middle of the season or at the end of the season, but it was played at the National Recreation Centre at Crystal Palace. Because Crystal Palace playing Selhurst, but this was actually in Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
And of course, since that was West Ham and Crystal Palace, my dad got tickets for that. So we went over there to watch that. So, Russell, this is a very important point.
Yeah.
My first match to watch West Ham play was in an athletic stadium with a pitch inside a running track. Ooh. Does that ring a bell? You guys are complaining about the new stadium. My first bloody game was Colin. You remember when you had Colin Milne on there, and he said how his first match was at the Boleyn was against Man United, and we won 3-2. Yeah. His last match, we played Man United at the Boleyn, and we won 3-2. And he said, "There's consistency for you." Same thing with me. My first match was played in an athletic stadium, and I'm sure since we have a 99-year lease, and I ain't going to live that long, I'll be watching my last game in an athletic stadium. But there's more consistency for you.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And you're right. Yeah, it's fun, isn't it? It's the circle of life, and so with Colin as well. It was the circle of life, and no, it was great fun.
What do they say? Plus ça change. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
It's so true, and it's so true, isn't it? It's like, even through West Ham's career, we're gonna turn up for the big boys and lose to the minnows of the league, so to speak. And it's never been different.
It was the same then. Yeah.
It's never been different.
My first game actually at the Boleyn was the following year in 1963. It was weird. I mean, my dad would never take me. He didn't like that I wasn't really a Palace fan anymore, although I was in a way because I still went with him. But in 1963, I'll never forget a friend of mine. I was at grammar school then, and my friend John Fisher, we talked football, and he said, "My dad's taking me up to see West Ham play Aston Villa on Saturday. Do you want to go?" And I said, "Oh yeah, do I?" So his dad drives me and John and John's brother Jeff up in his Morris Traveller, that estate
Mm.
wagon with the woody bits on the back there, and I go to the bowling for the first time, West Ham versus Aston Villa, and guess what the result was, Russ? We lost.
Lost, yeah. It's like, yeah, yeah. Well, at least
I
you
have a
set off.
terrible record watching West Ham, but nevertheless, but I never got to go again for several years because I didn't have any money. I do remember when we won the cup in '64, and was sitting in the living room watching it. Dad was watching it with me, black and white TV, and then Ronnie Boyce scores the winning goal in the last few minutes, and he jumps up and he's doing his stuff with his arms and stuff, and I was doing the same thing around the living room until my dad told me to shut the heck up and sit down again. So those are my earliest West Ham memories.
Brilliant. And so,
I met Ronnie Boyce a couple of years ago. They had one of those fan things over at Great Yarmouth. I don't know if you went to that one.
Not the one at Great Yarmouth. No.
They had Ronnie Boyce. They had Alan Taylor, scorer in 1975, and it was legends of West Ham. Everyone played in the FA Cup final. Alvin Minor was there, and my personal hero now was Trevor. I got to meet Sir Trevor Brooking. That was number one on my bucket list since I retired. And I got to meet him, and he was brilliant. I mean, he's just a great person, and of course, he was a great footballer too. I named my first son after him, and my wife got to meet him too because she was with me there for that show, and it was great.
Oh, I did a similar thing with my daughter, Carlos Di Canio Budden. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's I did try, but I was never gonna work. No, exactly, and obviously, being over there, as you said, it must be strange at times. But I suppose with being in the States, particularly in recent years, you get football on all the time, every match is on and stuff like that. So actually you probably get to see more football than us.
You're absolutely right, Russ. I pay a lot of money for it, but I have more access to West Ham games than the people in the UK, because not every game is on live on the weekend. There is always on live here, and I can watch it. In fact, I've been coming over every year, and I've got I have satellite TV here, Direct TV, and I have a subscription to that. And then I have, on my phone, when I come over there to the UK, I've got to find a pub with good Wi-Fi. I use a US VPN, and I can watch through my subscription. I can actually watch a live West Ham game in a pub over in England while the game's on, but isn't being shown live anywhere in England. So everyone that wants to watch it has to have a bootleg stream or go to a pub that's paying for whatever, So it's been great for me. These internet years, I got back into it. I had a family, all through the 80s, and so that was a bit of a blank for me, which is why Rob Banks's films have been so great. I mean, I did come back occasionally, but that particular period, I didn't get over as much as I would have liked because I had 3 young kids.
Of course.
So that has really sort of helped me catch up and remember stuff,
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, catching up. Yeah, exactly. Particularly now, people got until obviously the plethora of the football from Project Restart. Things like Robert Banks's YouTube channel was brilliant. All those season reviews and
and in fact, I've got a couple of players in my team that I probably wouldn't have put in there before I saw those videos, but that's changed my mind on what to put in. So
I love it. No, exactly. It's so true. It's very true. It's very true. And again, I think we've people had sort of those sort of claret, not rose, claret, tinted glasses for many years about certain players. And watching those reviews, I've changed my opinion on some players who I thought were brilliant. And it's like, no, they really weren't.
Like Ludo, right? I mean, Ludo's everybody's favourite goalkeeper.
Exactly.
Didn't he make a bunch of clangers all the time, didn't he?
My granddad was right. He called him Loopy Ludo, and it's so true. And it's like I assume, watching back, thinking, actually he was all right, but he did do a few clangers. But
I know he was make some mistakes, but he seemed like to make him. He would make a brilliant save, and then he'd drop the bloody ball right in front of the centre forward, who just whatever.
He's not
in my team. I got another goalkeeper. It's another thing I was thinking of when I was going and watching some of your shows there. Certain teams playing West Ham have got a look. I've just got a fixation on a couple of them because they always seem to be the ones I saw. I mean, over the years, I've seen us play most clubs, but I remember specifically games against Aston Villa. I just told you about the first time I went there to see Aston Villa and we lost. I've not ever seen West Ham beat Aston Villa in all the time I've
don't come at the end of the season then.
No, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. I definitely, I'm going to sort of watch that one in the mirror or something and see if it does any better. I'm terrible with Aston Villa, and Southampton's another one that I got a great story for Southampton there. I was in 1966. I managed to get my parents and their family to give me money for Christmas instead of like ties and sweaters and shit. You know, I used to always get. So I had a lot of money in the early 77. I went down to 67. I went down to see West Ham play at Southampton for two reasons. One, of course, I wanted to see the Ham. And my two loves at the time were West Ham and steam engines. I was a train spotter ever since a kid, and there weren't many steam engines left in those days. No. So I get down to Southampton, and I spend 3 or 4 hours going around stations watching steam engines. That was great. Go to the game. We got thrashed 6-2. Big Ron Davis was the centre forward for Southampton. Scored 4 goals that day. So I'm kind of bummed out. Get back to the station. Figure I'll hang around there for another hour or two and watch some more trains. So I'm standing on the platform where the London trains come in. I'm right up at the end where the steam engine stops, so I can see it. So the rest of the the passengers, the people who want to get on, they're down probably 40 yards away from me. And the train comes, and in comes the train, the Bournemouth Bell, famous train, all Pullman train. It's got a headboard on the front, for anoraks and stuff. It had a Bully Pacific 462, a rebuilt merchant navy. And I'm fascinated by this stuff. And then I see this British Rail guy coming running up the station, and behind me he opens a gate, and behind the gate was a little parking area, and a luxury bus had pulled up, and the entire West Ham team gets off the bus and walks through this little gate right on the platform, right where I am, and they start getting on the train. They had reserved the first coach in the train was for West Ham. Johnny Byrne and Ronnie Boyce got on first. So I'll never forget it, because they had cigarettes in their mouths. That always bothered me that pro footballers would smoke cigarettes. But they go, and then they pull the windows down and they start telling all the other players where to sit and who to sit next to, because they got this big card game already figured out, Well, then Bobby Moore walks onto the platform, and he's got it's winter time, so it's a bit cold. He's got his big long leather coat on, and he's standing, instead of getting on the train like everybody else would get on, he just sort of stands and looks around and takes in the scenery. I thought, this is your chance, Derek. So I walk up to him and put my hand out, and he shakes my hand, and I said something like, "Tough game, Bobby." And he, because we got fresh 6-2 there, and he sort of gives me this wry smile. I'm thinking, what else am I going to say? Because I was totally starstruck. But before I got a chance to say anything, all these other kids that were further down the platform had figured out what was going on. So they all rushed up there and got around him and wanted his autograph and stuff. So I just sort of stood back, and the rest of the players got on. I don't remember anybody wanting Jeff Hurst or Martin Peters' autograph at the time. I mean, maybe they did. I just don't remember it. Because they were in the team too, and they were famous because we just won the World Cup. 6 months before that.
Yeah, crazy.
It was great. And the only other person I remember getting on was John Sissons. You maybe know John Sissons. He was he looked like he was a 17-year-old surfer boy from the west coast of California. There, even when he was he must have been in his late 20s by then, but he always looked like he was a young kid. Brilliant. And anyway, all they get on and the train goes, and I thought, God, that was the day I met Bobby Moore. 15, 20 seconds with Bobby Moore. Never forget it.
Amazing.
It was brilliant. Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
Southampton Central Station. I've been back there since, but you can't recreate that because they built it all up and developed it, so it's totally changed now. I took my wife back there. We go on cruises, like I said, a lot, and a lot of them go out to Southampton. So.
Yeah, no, I love a cruise. But the thing is, I've got an 8-year-old daughter, so we do the Disney cruises. So I love them.
Yeah,
love them.
Absolutely.
I love them. It's great. You get to go to all these places every day, a different stop. And I get bored easily, so like seeing something new each day is great, and it's I love it.
When Fornell scored that second goal against Liverpool, I was in the cruise ship in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean watching it on the ship's Wi-Fi, and when he scored that goal, I jumped up and I realised I was in the concierge lounge. That's great.
I love doing stuff like that. You just don't realise where you are, and it's just like, I'm in a completely the wrong place to be doing this type of stuff. No, it's brilliant. So we spoke about some players and stuff, and obviously we do this Hammers 11 thing, and it gives people opportunity to think back and look at. As you said, go back and look at old tapes and think of players that they thought were great and maybe not so much now, and we try and get people to do that. Now, as I said before, the only really rule is you have to be alive to have seen them play. Now, obviously, from you, Derek, no disrespect, but you're an exexperienced fan.
So I've been alive since the founding of the bloody team back in 1895.
Exactly. So, but for the last, from the 60s onwards, that's quite a spread of West Ham players. So, it'd be quite interesting to get your take on some of the players. Now,
I have a very, very unique selection criteria.
That's what I like. Fact, let's go through it.
I think, with all due respect to Philip Pitt, who I think has probably done the most different one so far, right, with the shirts. By the way, you never had this shirt with the.
Didn't have that shirt. No. That shirt always reminds me of Martin Allen. That shirt, or Trevor Morley. That shirt. Anyway,
I got this when they were wearing it. I've had it ever since. Amazing. I've worn it over the years to a lot of football. I watched football over here. I used to live in Colorado, saw the Rapids, and I live in LA. I've seen the Galaxy a lot, and I often wore it to that. Just to
I wore mine when I went to see the when I went to see the Red Bulls. I'd wear mine. Yeah. When I'm over. But anyway,
Okay, so here's a little historical perspective for you, Russell, from an experienced fan. Okay, 1964, we won the FA Cup for the first time. That's our first real silverware, if you don't count the stuff that we got in the war, right?
Yeah.
Now, in those days, there were no substitutes. There was just 11 players in the team. I'm going to read you the names of 7 of them. Okay. In defence, we had Jack Burkett, Ken Brown, and John Bond. In the midfield, we had Eddie Bovington, maybe you've heard these names, Peter Braybrook, and Ronnie Boyce. And up front, we had Johnny Byrne. That's 7 players. Do you see any link between those 7 players? Anything sound?
They all have the letter B in their name?
They all have, very good. Their last name begins with the letter B. So this is my theory. West Ham will never win another cup competition until we have at least 2 players in the team whose last name begins with B. In 1923, we lost to Bolton Wanderers. We only had one B player. We had 7 in 1964. We had 3 in 1965 when we won the Cup Winners' Cup. We had 2 in 1975 when we won the FA Cup. That was Brooklyn and Bonds. We had 3 in 1980 when we won. We had Brooklyn, Bonds, and who was the other B player? Can you think in the 1980 team? Because that's your year, isn't it?
No, I was born in 1981. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was Ball Basil Brush. Okay, Ball Brush.
Ball Brush.
And then 2006, we lost. We only had 1 player with a B, with his last name beginning with B. So that's why we need to get a minimum of 2, which is why I'm very happy that we signed Jared Bowen, because we're getting to where we have...
and Fabian Balbuena.
We have 2 B players right now, but it didn't work for this year, but he weren't in the team at the same time, you see.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, that is my criteria for my team. Everybody has to have a last name beginning with B.
Brilliant. Love it, Derek. Okay, let's start...
Call it the West Ham B team.
The B team, the B team. Who's in goal for the Derek B team then?
Okay, this was my toughest issue, but and I thought I would be choosing someone that no one else has chosen, but I saw Tony Carr put him in there, and a couple of other people, is Stephen Bywater.
Nice.
Now, he's probably the weakest link there. Do you remember when you spoke to Steve Rappert there, he told you the story about we could have had Gordon Banks in our team, right? That would have been the ideal B.
Could be.
In fact, if we have had Banksy, when Ron Greenwood signed Bobby Ferguson and then John Cushley for centre half, we needed 2 players right at the centre of defence there. That team should have done so much better with Hurst and Peters and Moore, and then Bonds was there and Brooklyn was there, but we were weak down the middle. But God, if we'd have had Banksy, we'd have been fine. But Bywater, of course, he won the Youth Cup, didn't he? He was in that Youth Cup winning team back then, and he was also he made his debut in that crazy 5-4 Bradford game too.
Yeah.
The problem with that, I don't think Harry liked him after that. He made a couple of boo-boos in that game. We should have won that like 5-2 or something. But hardly ever got a game after that. He kept sending him out on on loan to
On
various
loans, yeah,
places.
yeah.
But he's
No, you're
still
right.
playing. I mean, he's a real journeyman goalkeeper. I think he's at Burton Albion or something now. So good luck to him. And that was my B goalkeeper.
And
Like Tony
obviously,
Carr said, Tony Carr never got. He said we never did really develop from the youth,
no.
from the academy, a good B player, did we?
No, I mean,
a
you've
good
got
goalkeeper.
I mean, you've got the young lad now. You've got Trott, who's just come back from AFC Wimbledon. He's a good keeper. I've seen him play.
Is it? Yeah.
Nathan Trott.
Yeah.
And obviously that was part of their plan, wasn't it? You know, that we obviously got Fabianski, and they got two experienced sort of keepers. Sent the two lads on loan to give them a couple of years, and then obviously it didn't work out, Roberto and stuff. But in hindsight, it's a great thing. But it was a good idea. But yeah, Nathan Trott's a good old keeper. I like him. So hopefully we'll start getting him in next season, I'd imagine. Right, we'll put Stephen Bywater in. Who's your next player? I'm going to let you just dictate who we talk to next.
Okay, so at left back.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to the 64 team. Had those 7 players, those 7 B players. Okay.
Yeah.
3 of them played the following year at Wembley against Munich in the Cup Winners' Cup, 1765. So I figured we honour those 3 players as real legends and put them in my team, because let's face it, how many players in the world, let alone at West Ham, have been to consecutive cup finals and come away with a winners medal? Not many.
No.
And so left back is Jack Burkett. Jack Burkett was he was a youth, he's an academy guy, and he only had a short career at West Ham, but during that time he was a real shining star. He played in both the games. He played 55 games in that 1964-65 season when we won the cup. He played 54 games that year, and he did score 4 goals during his career, and I saw one of them down at that Southampton match I told you about. He scored a long ranger from there, and so he's still alive, and so he was a fullback. He wasn't anything. I mean, he wasn't one of those guys that stand out. He was a defender first rather than an attack. Like overlapping stuff. So he was supposed to shut down the winger on the opposing team, because they always played with wingers in those days.
Sure.
And so he's number 1. He was my left back because, like I said, he was one of the 3. Then the next to him in the back 4 is he was Ken Brown.
Yeah.
Now, well, let me tell you a story, and I'll introduce Ken Brown to you, because this is amazing. So I'm over. You know where I live? I'm down here in Southern California. I'm 30 minutes away from Anaheim, from Disneyland. We have a band over here. No doubt you've heard of them.
Yeah.
No doubt. You've heard of No Doubt.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Gwen Stefani, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Their second album is called the Beacon Street Collection. They recorded it in the garage of their house that they were living in at the time, which was actually on Beacon Avenue, not Beacon Street, but Beacon Avenue in Anaheim.
Yeah.
And when my son and his wife, my daughter-in-law, were looking for a house a few years ago, they saw one for sale on Beacon Avenue, and my daughter-in-law is a big No Doubt fan, so they snapped that right up, and they lived, a few doors down from where that shows up. Anyway, that was where my granddaughter was born. So I'm down there 2 or 3 years ago, and her name is Gwen, right? Stefani. So I take Gwen down the end of the road. There's a park. I take it down there. She's playing on the swing. She's about 3 years old then, and so I'm hovering around, like you do as a parent when you've got young kids maybe hurting themselves. And there was a little boy there, same age as her, and his granddad was doing the same thing, hovering around. And when the granddad spoke to the little boy, I could tell he had a London accent. So I thought I'll go over and have a chat. And we did, and we talked, and he was there with his wife, and they were visiting his son and daughter-in-law who live in America.
Yeah.
And they're actually all going to meet there at the park and go off to Disneyland later in the day. So his son comes over a little bit later, and I speak to him, and I said, how you doing? And I asked him what football, like I always do, what football team you support. Chewing that everybody does. He said Spurs. So I said, I said, but well, I'm West Ham. And he says, well, you want to talk to my wife. So I thought, all right. And then a little bit later, she comes over. So I say to her, I said, so your husband tells me you're a West Ham fan. She said, no, I'm not really. So I said, oh, I could have sworn he said, and he said, before I could say anything else, she said, my maiden name is Cassatari.
Oh, brilliant.
And her granddad was Phil Cassatari, that got
Yeah.
had the cafe where the academy started.
Oh, wow.
What's the chance of meeting
Oh, I love
a
stuff like
historic
that.
in the
I
middle?
love stuff like that.
I told her, I said, when you go to Disneyland, you better go on It's a Small World.
Yeah,
Because we just bloody proved it, didn't we?
Oh, it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's amazing. But anyway, Ken Brown was one of those guys. He came into the team in the late 50s, and he used to be one of the, you had Malcolm Allison and Noel Cantwell and Malcolm Musgrove and all those guys, John Bond and Ken Brown. They all became managers later on. They all came up, but that was the foundation of the academy down there. Ken Brown was a stalwart. He played, I got it down here somewhere, he played 474 games for West Ham. He was the man from 50s right through to the cup, the European Cup Winners' Cup final. And of course, his son Kenny Brown played for West Ham later on. And I was going to put Kenny. He was going to be my choice for right back. Actually, I thought we'll have a father and son thing going there.
Sweet.
But then I changed my right back because of what I saw on Rob Banks's stuff. Because I never realised, I saw him play a few times, but he never stood out to me. But Timmy Breaker, what a great fullback he was. He was quick.
Yeah.
He had a great cross on him, and what a shot he had! He scored. Oh, how many goals did he score from outside the box?
He did.
He was great. And I never realised it until I saw Rob's video. So Tim Breaker gets my right back. So I got Jackie Burkett and Kenny Brown in the middle. They're the two of the old guard. Timmy Breaker at right back. Now, I had a bit of a quandary on who to put in the other back four line. And I narrowed it down to Billy Bonds or Slaven Bilic. Yeah. And I went with Billy Bonds because I made Slaven Bilic my manager, because I got a B team with a B manager too, which is Slaven. I did meet Slaven Bilic once when I was over at Chadwell Heath. I managed to get in and had a chat. I ended up parking my car next to his, and when we were leaving, I had to sort of get out of his way for him to leave. And this is back in like late 90s, and I knew he was a great bloke. He was very well spoken. I knew he'd be a great manager. Oh, I thought he'd be a great manager. Shame it didn't work out with the Payet thing, but we had a team that was one of the most attractive teams to watch play football, wasn't it? I mean,
and he's doing a job at West Brom now.
I have Billy Bonds in there. Yeah. And Bonzo was just, I mean, I know lots of other people have him in their team, but you've got to have Bonds. And of course, he played in 2 FA Cup finals. And he was great. And I remember him when he signed from Charlton. I was watching. He was right back. He played right back for many years. Yeah. But he played everywhere. Halfback. That you just learned about the halfbacks, right?
I'm learning about him. Yeah.
Well, he played normally he was a halfback, but then he often played in the back four next to Alvin Martin and some of the other centre halves we had. So that's my back four.
Yeah, nice.
Jackie Burkett, Kenny Brown, Billy Bonds, and Timmy Breaker.
Yeah, nice. Right. I'm liking this. Let's go into midfield then, Derek. I'll leave you to it. You talk about who you want to in whatever order you want to talk about.
Well, on the left side of midfield, you can't have anyone but my all-time great hero, Trevor Brooking. Yeah. Like I said, I met him a few years back, and he was brilliant. And I watched him. I used to go to games when I was, still living there. And my first few years, I didn't have anyone to go with. I didn't have any friends. So I used to get the program and read it. And Trevor was in the youth team then, but they were going on about him, how he was coming through. And they had a little bio on him. And he was still studying. He stayed in school. A lot of kids signed apprentice forms and they basically left school. But Trevor stayed at school to do his O-levels. And one of them was economic history, which was the same O-level I was doing at the time. Wow. So I had an immediate sort of bond with him. And so I sort of grew up through West Ham experience with Trevor in and out of the team. And I saw him score his hat-trick against Newcastle. The only time he scored a hat-trick, one of which was with his head. And I'll never forget the newspaper headlines, as far as I can remember, next day were, Brooking lets Hammers fans forget about Hurst, because Hurst was injured. Yeah. So Trev came in and played. He had the number 9 shirt on that day, and he scored a hat-trick. And Trevor Brooking, what a great guy, what a great ambassador for our club. And the all-time, of course, I could have had him as manager too. He's there as a B team. I think he has our best management record, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's got best win record.
The highest percentage of wins or something. It's so Trev, but he's great. He's a credit to the world, not just to West Ham.
Agreed. Trevor is in. Who's next? And Derek?
Okay, the next one, I'll put him on the far right side.
Okay.
Would be the third of our double back-to-back cup winner medals, Ronnie Boyce.
Yeah.
Who scored that winning goal in the cup final in '64, and I saw him at that Great Yarmouth thing, and I asked him. I said, "Oh well, I was at another game that he was big in. You've probably seen this one on one of the YouTube, one of Rob's YouTubes. Jimmy Greaves' debut against Manchester City away. I think it's 1970. You know, we got him in the deal with Martin Peters. Went to Tottenham when we got Greavesy, and Greavesy had this record of always scoring on his debut. England under 21s, Chelsea, Spurs, Milan, or wherever it was, he was over there. And sure enough, he scored 2 goals on his debut for us. And we were at Man City on a freezing cold day. And Man City they had won the championship, I think, or the first division, the previous year. There was a good team, Colin Bell, Mike Summerby, and the England goalkeeper, Joe Corrigan. And we thrashed them 5-1. Greavesy got 2 goals. But the most memorable thing in that game there was so much mud on the pitch that the only grass that was growing was kind of on the edge of the penalty areas. Everything else was sloppy mud. So Joe Corrigan, the goalkeeper, comes out with the ball, and he goes out right to the very far edge in order to be on grass, I guess, so he didn't slip over. And he kicks the ball, drop kicks it into the halfway, into the centre circle. And there's Ronnie Boyce. He comes right down, and Ronnie goes bang with his foot straight back, and Joe's sort of strolling back to the goal, and next to his ball's going, and he can't get to it because it's so muddy there. And it goes right in the back. And I asked Ron Boyce when I met him, I said, so what was the best goal you ever scored? Was it the one in the cup final or the one at Man City there? And I can't remember what he said, actually, because it's very noisy in there, so I don't know. But yeah, so Ronnie Boyce was a ticker Boyce, they called him. Although he was a smoker, he had, he ran all over the place for 90 minutes. And so he was a great servant boy. He played bloody, I wrote it down here, he played 333 games for West Ham.
God. Crazy, isn't it? Nowadays you don't. Nowadays if you get 50 games out of a player, you've done well.
You're right. I mean, well, let's put next to him. I put.
Yep.
Well, I got 2 other players in the midfield. Now another one, I was going to choose Yossi Benayoun and Ayel Berkovic. Okay.
Yes.
But then I decided, after I've seen Rob Banks' videos, Ian Bishop's got to be in there somewhere. I never realised how good he was until I saw all those videos. I saw him a lot of times. Again, he never stood out when I watched the game of him, but seeing the highlights, he was a great player.
Yeah.
Skillful, tough, goal scorer. He arrived a bit like Martin Peters. He'd arrive late in the box and score goals and stuff.
Yeah.
So I put him as one of those middle spots there.
Yeah. Nice.
And next to him, so now I'm down to either Yossi or to Ayel Berkovic. But I put in Yossi because he was in the cup fight. He was in the 2006 cup final.
Good point. Yeah.
He was a very skillful player, and he played for us twice. He went away and came back, didn't he? We had him.
Twice.
In the team twice. And I always thought he's got a great name. It's like if you're down the pub and you're having a drink, and he's at the bar. Yossi, get the beers in, mate. Yossi, that's a good sort of. Sounds like an East End name to me. So
he was good, and he was he was gonna. And when I interviewed Anton Ferdinand about Yossi, he said what was great about Yossi, which a lot of people realised, was he liked to tackle, and so apparently he liked to get and going back and looking at a few. He did put his foot in quite a bit, for a relatively skinny guy.
He was totally skinny. Yeah.
He liked to put it about a bit, so he liked a bit of needle. So that's why I've got, again, similar to your thing about Timmy Breaker. I'm exactly the same. Watching these things, the appreciation for these players. I actually said it to Tim as well. I was like, I've never really rated you, but you were just a name on the team sheet when I was young. Because I was young, it was all about Trevor.
You had him on your show. I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah, Tim's on. Tim's been on. Tim's been on. We've got a play. There's a playlist of all the I put one together of all the players and like Harry and people like So yeah, Timmy's in there. He's a good one. He's a lovely guy. Okay. Lovely guy. But I did say to him, look, I didn't appreciate you when you were playing for West Ham, but now I do. Thanks. What can you say?
And Ian Bishop, I saw that one, and he's a great guy too.
I love him.
He's a funny lad.
He's brilliant. Such a nice guy.
as I said, I never appreciated him from because I didn't see him regularly. Like it would be 1 or 2 games a year, and
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
But I doubt if I saw him play more than half a dozen times. But
No, he's brilliant. No, I like Bish. Lovely guy, and obviously he's your side of the pond as well. So
yes, that's right. He's in Florida now, right?
Yeah. He's loving life there. He's so
Yeah.
good. That sounds good. Okay, we'll put Yoshi in. So I used to.
That's the midfield, right?
Yeah, I used to work for a Jewish company, so I don't say Yoshi, it's Yoshi because the guy used to work with was called Yoshi next to me. So I always he was funny, old man.
Of course, that's right. He was. Well, was Bergovich? He wasn't Jewish too, was it? Was he too?
Yeah. Yeah, I was. Yeah. We had like there was 3 basically in that sort of period. You had Yoshi Ben-Aoun, you had Eyal Berkovich, and then you had a guy called Yaniv Kaitan, who played like right wing. He wasn't very. He was one of those sort of 6-month Harry signing type things. He was been and gone. But Yoshi and Berkovich. And if you look at Berkovich now. Most players look the same, don't they? From you can still see it. Apart from Alan Devonshire, who looks completely different from when he was playing, and Berkovich, they look completely different.
My hair's almost as long as Devo's hair. I haven't had my hair this long since I was about 40. Since I came over here because I hadn't been to a barber in that.
Oh no, I'd love to have had that problem, Derek, but.
Well, then Jackie Hughes didn't have a problem. She didn't have a problem muscling your hair, wouldn't she? If you ran off the pitch there.
Exactly. Yeah, she wouldn't be able to nuzzle it.
I never knew that about Jackie. So.
Oh, it's brilliant, and then it's so funny because you sent me the picture afterwards, and yeah, you saw it just like on Bobby Moore's hair. Absolutely brilliant. I love that. All right, okay, let's go.
Did she get Brill cream all over her hair?
Yeah, exactly. As much as it just slip off in those days. Right, let's go up front, Derek. Who we got up front?
All right. Well, talking of Jackie, she chose someone. I thought no one else was going to choose this player, but she did, and that's Clyde Best. Now, I saw him come into the team, and he was, on his day, really exciting player. I mean, big. The big knock on him was he didn't use his height and his size to enough advantage. He was a gentle giant kind of guy.
Yeah.
But he had great ball skills for a big tall guy, and he had a heck of a shot on him. And I just love Clyde Best, and I saw him score a couple of goals. He was one of those. He played cricket. We've had a lot of cricket playing footballers in the team. I think Jim Standen, who was the goalkeeper back in the cup finals.
Yeah,
he'd been in the team, except his last name doesn't begin with B. He played professional cricket. I think even Bobby Moore might have played for Essex or something. They were all in those days. You could sort of play in the summertime. They let them play cricket. I don't think they'd let them do that now because you get hurt. But Clyde Best, he was good all-rounder in many respects there. And I loved Clyde. And then my final player up front, the person that brought me to West Ham in the first place, Johnny Byrne.
Yeah, so I thought he was going to come in.
He was a player you remember we were worried. West Ham went down to the second division, didn't they, in the 70s, and we were all worried that Sir Trevor who was playing for England regularly then, might not get picked for the England team because it's been so long since any player who was in anything but the first division or Premier League, whatever it was, had played for the England team. But of course, the lucky thing was that Ron Greenwood was the manager of England when he first went down. Yeah. So he did continue to play. In fact, it was 1978 because I went over. My mum passed away that year, and I went over for the funeral. And I think it was on a Saturday. I can't remember the day, but there was an evening game at Wembley that night, England versus Hungary. So funeral's over. We're sitting around the kitchen at my dad's house about 6 o'clock. There's me, and everyone else has left now. Just me, my dad, my brother, and my auntie Gladys, my mum's older sister. And I sort of brought up I said, do you think people would look down on us on a funeral day, if we were to go see a football match at Wembley then? And my auntie said, nah, your mum would have wanted you to. So she didn't go, but the 3 of us went down there. He lived then in Hillingdon, so there's only like 4 stops down the tube to Wembley. We didn't have tickets to go down there. But I say that because that's the only time I saw Sir Trev playing for England.
Yeah.
And we beat Hungary, and we beat, you know, I I was a football fan. My dad took me to Wembley when I was 8 years old, and I saw England play Sweden, and we lost. England lost. Sweden were the World Cup champions.
Yeah.
Then I saw England versus Scotland a couple of years later. We lost that. Then I saw Sutton United, my local team, play in the Amateur Cup final at Wembley, two times in 3 years. Lost both those games. I had never seen the team I support. And I didn't get to see West Ham playing at Wembley, so I didn't have the team I supported never won at Wembley until that day, and I saw Sir Trevor and they beat Hungary 3-0. So that was the old Wembley.
Brilliant.
And I saw Sir Trevor play just one time for England.
That's fantastic.
And Johnny Byrne, as I said, he was playing for England in that
in
the old fourth division, but of course he went up to West Ham. He was in the original World Cup squad before they cut it down to 22, I think it's 22 or something. It was like, I think we would have had, I think, 4 players. Johnny Byrne, but he got cut, so he never down to 3. But he was very much like Jimmy Greaves. I think he tended to favour his left foot, but he was just a fox in the box, as you were saying the other day. You mentioned Chicharito. Well, I suppose in a way he was about the same thing. He scored all of his goals inside the penalty area. He ever scored one from outside. He wasn't renowned for his shooting, but he was quick off the mark. And he could take a player out, and he could skip over the mud. And he was a great little player.
Brilliant.
For many years. Budgie Byrne.
Budgie Byrne.
And then I'll have Slaven Bilic as my manager. The day I was telling you about when I met Slaven at Chadwell Heath.
Yeah.
This is a full story there. Back in the 90s, we just had the internet then. We didn't have social media and stuff.
No.
We had a big internet mailing list. It's still going. That's how I know, Gary Killington Ian Dale and a whole bunch of those guys. Well, in those days, they had what they called the Internet Soccer Team or Football Team League. So fans of West Ham would play, let's say, West Ham were playing Arsenal. I had tickets for the game. I was coming over. So the Internet Irons were going to play the Cyber Gooners, which were the Arsenal fans team. It's at Hackney Marshes, 11 o'clock kickoff. Right?
Wow.
So, because this was all being chatted about on the email list. So I asked innocently enough, who do you get for a referee? Because I was a referee. I played over here till I was 45, and then I started refereeing.
Yeah.
By that time, I quit playing. I broken body parts and bits sort of falling off, so I couldn't really play anymore, but I could still run. So they said, we never have a referee, we just fight and argue amongst ourselves. So I said, well, I'll come over and I'll referee the game if you want. They said, yeah, come on by. So I refereed a game in the morning. I think the Arsenal team won, and then we go to the game and Arsenal wins that one. Dennis Bergkamp played that game. It was brilliant. So again, I saw him lose. On the Monday, I had arranged with, you remember, of course you remember, Elwyn Cockett, the Rev, he was on our list. Well, I'd emailed Elwyn. I said, can you get me in at Chadwell Heath to see the training on Monday? And he said, sure. He had a word with, I think it was Charlie that was on the gate there. So I go in and I see a park next to, Slaven Bilic. I didn't know it was his car. And I watched the game. And anyway, after training's over and all the players are back in, I walk over and Harry's there talking to Frank Lampard. And I walk over and I introduce myself, and he sees I'm actually wearing a Seattle Mariners baseball hat, and Harry recognised that because he was in Seattle for a couple of years playing football on the old NS.
Yeah.
And he was great. I mean, a lot of people knock Harry, but for me, he was just brilliant. He shook my hand, he introduced me to Frank. He put Tony Carr was there. He pulls Tony over there to introduce me to Tony Carr. Frank Lampard Jr. was shooting balls in the net there, and he says, "Come on in, Derek. We'll get you a cup of tea." And we go into the changing rooms, and he gets me a cup of tea, and he sits me down at a table in the back there, and there's general hubbub going on, and there's a bloke standing behind me, and I sort of look up, and I recognise him. It was Rio Ferdinand, before he'd actually got in the team. He was still a junior then. So I said, are you Rio? And he said, yes. So I had a chat with him, which was great. And then Harry comes out, he said, well, shut up. And I said, we've got a reserve game on Tuesday, the next day, 3 o'clock at Wimbledon, and he puts the team notice, the team sheet up on the board. And I thought, I'll have some of that, because that day I had arranged to take my dad over to see Crystal Palace play Bolton in the evening and meet my brother. My brother was going to come down from Peterborough. I thought, well, it's at Wimbledon, so I can go down to Wimbledon on the way and then go over to the Palace. And my dad and I had been to the Plough Lane ground for Wimbledon several times, 30, 40 years before that. So it was perfect. So we go down and we're sitting in the stand. There's probably 30, 40 people there. I saw Ian Dowie was playing, and he scored a goal, which was very rare because he didn't score a goal for the team. But the last year he was there. No. Richard Hall was the captain that day, and you've heard of Richard Hall, right?
Yeah.
Fabulous player, but he played like 6 games and he was injured out. He never got to play again. Well, here's what happened. 15 minutes in, the referee gets injured. He pulls a muscle or something. Now, I told you I've been to hundreds of games over the years, and I remember on several occasions that the referee would get hurt, and then they'd have to put the linesman on. And like a Sutton United place like that, they'd say, if there's any, any qualified referee in the stage, in the ground, would they make themselves known to the grandstands? So I thought, and I had my referee gear. Remember, I'd done the Internet Irons game, and I said I had my gear in the back of the car. So I'm thinking, this could be great. I had my ID card with me, my USS soccer registration thing. They're going to need a referee. I'm going to go down and get to run the line. How great would that be? But unfortunately, even for some stinking reserve game like that, they had a fourth referee. So instead of asking me, they stopped him doing his fourth referee duties and stuck him on the line. So I was that close for us to
close.
Now that would have been great.
That'd been awesome.
And that night. When we went over to the Palace and met my brother. We get there early and we're going to go down to the sports club and have a drink. And the Bolton bus comes in. And who's the first person off the bus? Sam Allardyce. First time I ever saw Big Sam up front. And he was big even then, wasn't he?
Yeah. No, I did like Sam, I'll be honest. I was a bit of a Sam fan, to be perfectly frank. So I like bravado. I think a manager needs to be a sort of protagonist. And I think we have, I remember like Pardew had that sort of divisive nature about him, where it wouldn't just be about the players on the pitch, but be him versus the manager. And same with Sam. He had that him versus the manager, usually against the fans of the other opposition as well. I remember in Burnley, when we played Burnley, and he walked back he was a lot, because at Burnley you had to walk from the players had to go from one corner across the pitch to the dugout, and everyone had left, everyone had gone through, and then about 20 paces back was Sam, just walking, literally boos around Turf Moor, and that's what he did. And I like that in a player and a manager. I like being that protagonist. He's a bastard, but he's our bastard. Do you know what I mean? I love that in a player.
Talk about Alan Pardew. I went to the ground one day to do a tour. I wanted to do a tour around the ground. Well, apparently it was closed that day. They wouldn't let me do it. But so I kept, whining and throwing a hissy fit, and the security guy finally said, "Okay, come on out." So anyway. As you walk down the corridor, I went out onto the pitch, and in the changing room. So that's all I really wanted to do. But Pardew had just taken over there, and he had all these signs, all these plaques on the wall. Did you ever see them?
Yeah.
They were they're supposed to, they were quotations that were supposed to encourage you to do this, and they didn't like them. Nobody liked it. They all thought they did not like Alan Pardew, at least not when he started there. But of course, he did a good job for us. He got us through to the cup final, and
I always
like Big Sam. I mean, might not like Big Sam, but he got us up He got us up to the first event, the very first time of trying, didn't he? So,
and I like Pardew. I think Pardew was a little bit ahead of his time, to be honest. He was very sort of inspirational, motivational. I mean, he was the only manager out of all the managers I've DJ'd under, so to speak, who actually gave a shit about the music. So we would regularly, me and Jem would regularly go into have not a cup of tea, so they don't drink tea, but we'd go into the office and he'd say, "So, what type of music are we going to be playing today? Can we play this or can we play that?" And that's it makes.
That's great. So, what did he choose? What was his favourite? Was he a blues?
No, he loved a bit of Sinatra. He I should be saving this for my book, but one day. But no, he loved Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin. Right. He once brought in, and there was his crooners. He liked
the crooners.
Yeah, he loved the crooners. You could see that about Pards. He's a bit of a silver fox, wasn't he? A bit of a crooner.
Yeah, I can see that.
And he famously, he brought in one day he'd gone to see the Rat Pack live at the Savoy Theatre, and he went backstage. I think this is the story, and he basically booked the Dean Martin impersonator to come and sing at the game. And so, but do like the Dean Martin version of Bubbles. It's the version that I had for my wedding song. And he didn't remember the words, so he had this guy, and he mumbled the words. I think someone who's watching will definitely remember that. But it's brilliant. No, and I used to like Podgy. He'd come back, he'd be on holiday in Orlando, came back, and he's had this idea for SeaWorld. You know, SeaWorld, they used to do this thing where they zoomed in on people, asked them a question, they'd say 1, 2, or 3, and then they'd throw them a T-shirt. And he thought we should do that at Upton Park. And I was like,
really?
I was like, you can imagine, imagine 1, 2, or 3.
Old time fans wouldn't go with that.
Yeah, 3, and so it never worked out. But I used to love it.
They do that all the time at games over here, don't they? You go to a baseball game and stuff. It's everything. Everyone does. Basketball, they're always throwing shirts and stuff.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's just all about the entertainment, and I think that's what I love about. Considering how long a baseball game goes on for, and still in between the innings, there's some a race of blow up, mascots.
Yeah.
Love it.
If you've got kids with you,
oh yeah,
you need that because that's good. I mean, you might leave it or take it as an adult, but kids love that stuff. So
yeah, they do.
They'll go to see a game to see the halftime show or the Hammerettes or what's his name, the guy with the hammer.
Hammerheads. Hammerhead Bubbles the Bear. No, bless them. Derek, man,
whatever gets bums on seat.
Exactly, and it keeps them happy. And I've seen firsthand how much they all love those mascots and stuff. And no, it's good fun. Derek, man, it's been brilliant talking to you. I've loved it. Absolutely loved it chatting to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
Good luck with the rest of your shows. And I look forward, and I should definitely. What you had Ian Bishop? I've got to find Ian Bishop then.
Yeah, go for that playlist. You got Bishop, you got Breaker. Yeah, Timmy Breaker's a good one as well. And obviously, thank you to everyone for watching as well. You know what to do: like, share, subscribe. And until the next time, from me and Derek, take care, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll see you all again very, very soon. Thank you, everyone. See you. Bye bye. Come on, you Irons, indeed, Derek. Cheers. Bye bye.